Holy shit balls, this is something to behold. So, evening all, what we have here is another super heavy tank spotlight. Now, this is Psychotic Shooter, who is a top bro, who basically offered to show me the ARMOUR tank that he has created. Obviously, remember we showed you adapting kills, shield tanking beast, let's say. Now, this is actually a different view. This is now an armor tanking tank. Now this is actually the top range tank as well, so this is the tier 2. I would guess you'd call this a prototype tank. So it naturally benefits from a bit more armor, a bit more shield and all that good stuff. Certainly more power grid and CPU, but this thing was a beast, as you'll see through this. Now, the little game that we're going to go and play with this video is, does the tank survive? Now you'll see pretty much what's happening here. Let me just introduce what's going on here. This is basically one tank, a group of absolutely ineffectual guys who are obviously on our team. I don't know why, they just didn't seem to do a great deal. Versus, I would say, 16 very good orange players who basically become fixated with taking this tank down. So place your bets. What would a group of 16 capable, good players do against a single tank that's probably one of the best fit tanks you could probably get? So place your bets. As we go through this, let's have a discussion around what this tank is. Now this is effectively this Syria, or the Syra, or whatever they call it, and it's an armor tanking tank, and as you can see, it benefits from around maybe 2,000 shield and around about 8,500k armor. Now obviously it's hardened and it's got some good rappers on there as well, but it was interesting talking with Psychotic Shooter around maybe how he uses this thing, because the reality of this tank versus the other tank we saw was this is more of a brick. And Psychotic Shooter put it well when he said this is the kind of tank you'd drive into a problem and you'd leave it there to sort it out. And I quite like that kind of approach. I think the shield tank is obviously faster, but it's more capable of getting in, doing some damage, and then recovering as it moves away. And I think this is maybe something to consider, because if you're going to go for tanks, you probably want to get a tank that's more fitting with your style of play. I originally have been training for shield tanks, but after this little session I thought, well, actually I quite like armor tanks, but they're not entirely own mobiles. I mean, it's probably worth mentioning every skill point that Psychotic Shooter has gone into tanks. So he's got good turrets, he's got good skills in terms of armor and repping and tanking and so on. So it's always very difficult to kind of say they're OP when the reality of it is that he's actually just able to pilot it well. Same as adapting kill. I think really that's kind of maybe what we should factor in a bit more when it comes to doing these things. Is the reality is that good pilots will always be able to use good they'll do good fights. But as you can see, this thing's being beaten back. I mean, look at all these swarm launchers coming in, and is he going to survive? Ooh, yes, just. So that was kind of round one, and fast forward just slightly, we probably paused for maybe about 20-30 seconds there. The reppers went on, and then we're back into the fray. And I think, again, it's just good tankmanship. There you go, there's a new word for you. That I think really kept this thing alive. And it was, I mean, the turrets were pretty good as well, I must admit. I think, the militia turrets, I mean, a lot of you are probably doing tanks, and you're probably wondering why you're not getting the same kills and, the same effectiveness as maybe some of these other guys. It's because, like that dude, that was a militia tank, and it wasn't a particularly well fit one. The militia turrets also are pretty awful, so it's just worth bearing that in mind. Now, interestingly enough, whenever you do tank operations, make sure you place orders on the tank, so a defend order on one of the troopers, for example, and then you will be blessed with a phenomenal amount of war points, meaning you'll get an awful lot of orbital strikes as well. In this map, I had 3, which is pretty decent. And all we were basically just trying to do was, just beat back the opponent, to be honest. One of the things also that I really liked about this tank was, it has almost kind of a, I guess, an ability to just basically roll up, but then, defend itself. I think that's something I really was quite surprised at. Even when you had like dozens of forge gunners and swarm launchers and all that good stuff, it was still capable of sitting, soaking up the damage, but then you know, as you can see, infinitely dealing it back. And each turret, I mean, there's 3 turrets on this. One is obviously the main one, and then you've got 2 sub turrets, but each turret was dealing a phenomenally good amount of damage. Accurate, you know, not too prone to overheating, and I think this is the difference again. Whereas militia blaster turrets are pretty awful, I would say that this just shows you the difference when you have these kind of leveled up decent you know, turrets. Look at that, it's basically able to take out the CRU, which is, you know, no mean feat for a militia turret. I don't even think it's technically possible within maybe 10 minutes of shooting. Well, it is, but you know what I mean. And I think this was certainly something that was a real eye-opener when it came to how this map was working. Now, again, the only frustration I would have with this thing was that because it was only us really playing, the other guys I think were just kind of running around getting killed, and that was a shame, because I think we could have captured points. Half or maybe even 3/4 of their team are hell-bent on killing this tank, so they have all switched to militia, to forge gunning and to swarm launching, but most of it's militia, I think, if not all, because the damage being done was pretty standard. As you can see, bang bang, you know, it's not good solid damage that maybe a good forge gunner would do, and so on. But you know, the Reaper's going, I think, with the resistances on as well. This was a phenomenally powerful tank. Again, you know, and I think a lot of people really do get fixated on, you know, is something OP if it can withstand this kind of punishment, but I don't know. I mean, had somebody been on their team with exactly the same tank but railguns fit, a really good set of railguns, you would have probably destroyed this tank. Do you know what I mean? So I think this is why you can't really say something's OP if you're not willing to do a proper counter to it. So, for example, I'm doing a good forge gun training at the moment because I want to try and take out, you know, more dropships and more tanks and things like that. But you know, I'm getting better better forge guns and so on to do that. I don't think you can stand there with a militia swarm launcher shooting at a tank like this, realize you can't kill it, and then cry that it's OP. If you have a whole team of people doing it, again, I would probably say that you're not coordinating well enough, because you know, all through this map, you know, if they'd have all got a gang together and got ready for us and really waited and, you know, laid in wait and did a trap a bit more tactically than just running around, I think they would have easily killed us. And as you can see, already they've come close to killing us once, and believe me, they'll do it again. And I think, again, tantalizingly, you know, towards the end of the video, you'll see how it actually turns out. But I think it's fascinating when you kind of, I mean, you know, I'm loving doing these videos because I think, to me, it's always good to see what, you know, some really veteran players have done with their skill points in Dust, because I think there's some real talent. I think there's some really good solid players, and I think you know, you can't really hate them too much, because eventually when the game changes and it maybe becomes a much bigger map, maybe it becomes a much bigger affair, tanks are going to be pretty much commonplace. So you need to have a bit of an ability to take them out. A lot of people would just kind of run away and moan about them, but I think the reality is eventually everybody's going to have some form of anti-tank fit, not just the starter militia swarm launcher fit, and not just the militia forge gun fit. You'll actually have to put points into dealing with vehicles. Anyway, let's not be too negative. I think this was a real blast in terms of what we were able to do with this thing, and I think really the you know, some of the kind of I guess lemming-like approach from these guys was just surprising. Like, we had people trying to run up and shoot the tank with an AR and, you know, an assault rifle, and you know, I don't know what maybe they think they're doing, but they're just kind of highlighting where they are, so basically the tank pilot's able to turn quicker and get them. So I think sometimes, you know, it does you know, beg a belief what I think some people must be thinking when they see a tank coming. But don't let that dissuade you. I think, you know, there's something that you should just embrace, and maybe just learn how to counter, because there will be always a time when a tank is on your side like this, but there'll also be a time when the tank is on their side. So again, you just need to have, I think, maybe the beginnings of a strategy of how to deal with this kind of event, because, you know, these things probably aren't going to go. Even if they nerf them, they'll find a way for them still to be good. So here we go, just dropping another orbital. Let's see what we get with this one. Not too bad, I think 3, that'll do. But again, it's just fun having the orbitals, obviously, because we've got this huge amount of war points coming in from this thing. And I would stress, this is the top prototype tank. This is no kind of level 1 Caldari, you know, Gunlogi or Madrug or whatever. This is a proper, you know, high skilled tank and tank pilot. So, you know, it's probably not unsurprising that this thing is particularly powerful. And Psychotic Shooter was telling me that actually he's had times when, you know, he has been taken down by only a few players, and it's usually when there's kind of a good coordination of forge guns, things like that. Oh, this is looking a bit serious now. So here we go. Is he gonna do it? Oh, it's getting close. Are you ready? Are you ready? Oh, just survived. And as the reppers go on, the round ends. So there we go. It was fun. You know, I know that a lot of people hate these tanks, and I think they hate these footage things, but you just have to embrace them. And I think if you've got a particularly interesting tank or a dropship, or maybe you just got an interesting squad that you would love to showcase, then just give us a shout. Join Kicking Dust in game, and we can arrange something. But I think really we'd love to show this sort of stuff. I'd love to see a really good dropship pilot as well. You know, doing some ferrying of troops and all that good stuff. But there we go. That was a phenomenally powerful armor tank this time. Hope you enjoyed that. We'll see you next time.